It's West Coast Ramble. This episode, we're giving you 1 full hour of the Paladins. We're talking with bass player Tomas Yearsley and guitar slinger Dave Gonzalez with your hosts Big Sandy, Pope Paul, and me, Tom. Get ready, it's West Coast Ramble. Hey, it's West Coast Ramble, and thank you very much for watching episode 61. It is our special Paladins episode, 40 years of hot rod rocking with the Paladins. And I got a question for Paul, Pope Paul. Hey, Paul, who's on the show and what's going on, sir?
Well, once again, we're going to have the one and only Dave Gonzalez, the mighty guitar player from the Paladins, and we are joined by his partner in crime, Tomas Yearsley, the fearless bass player of the Paladins.
That's right. And
I'm excited.
And I got a question. I got a question for Big Sandy, because we had Dave on last night. We only got a measly 18 minutes with Dave on our show, and so after the show, well, Big Sandy says, "Hold on a second. We need more Paladins." So, Big Sandy, what happened, sir?
Okay, well, for those of you who remember last week when we had Dave on, towards the end of the show, I kind of put him on the spot, and we were, kind of rushing. We're out of time. I thought we need more of you, Dave. Let's do it. You want to do a whole show on the about you next week? And then it seemed like it wasn't going to work. It was 4th of July, But then as soon as we were done, we went off the air. Dave and I got on the phone. We got to talking. And we both agreed we really need to follow up on this. Let's do a whole episode on you. And then Dave said, well, I wonder maybe Tomas would be into doing it. So he got in touch with Tomas. I followed up, and it came together. Two guys who are very important to me, who have been.
I was in your audience, and it was an awesome show, and it was great to see Susanna, and it was a really great show, and knowing that all the other people were watching, were coming, and they were making little comments to be doing, really made me feel like I wasn't so isolated, and I was back with my good old friends. So thanks for getting me on.
Well, I tell you what, we were going to wait and surprise everybody, but you already heard them right there, ladies and gentlemen. Wait, Paul, why don't you introduce our two guests here?
So once again, guys, happy 4th of July. Here's a big surprise. We got Tomas and Dave this time, both from the Paladins. Let's hear it for them.
Hey.
Howdy, and happy 4th of July to everybody throughout the world, because we got a lot of fans, and you all do too, all over Western Europe, Australia, Canada, Mexico, and 4th of July is a big event for us here in the States, but everybody else who's watching abroad, God bless you all, and thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think this is it's perfect, because to me, you guys are the all-American band. So here we go. Yeah. Welcome to the show, guys.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, where do we start with this whole thing? Because we've all been huge fans of the Paladins for years. But what do you guys? Can we start at the beginning, sirs? Like, where did this whole thing start? San Diego surfer type dudes, and how did you end up being like blues masters 40 years ago when this whole thing started? What was it like? Where did you guys start from, sir? Where did you guys meet? Can we start there, sir?
Start there, Tom.
Well, okay, yeah. Well, we met in high school, and in the fall of 1978, he sat next to me in a social science class, and I was new. It was the school was in Encinitas, San Diego High School, and I was new to the area, and so was he. He was from north of Los Angeles, and I was from Ocean Beach, which is down in San Diego. So we were kind of new kids in a kind of different place. That our parents happened to move to the same neighborhood. I mean, just a few blocks away is where we lived, and we met there in high school, and we started talking about music right away. We didn't hardly know anybody else at that high school. We didn't have connections with the stoners or the surfers or the jocks or anybody else. We just we kind of got
I don't know if you remember this, Tom, but my brother Steve, he also played guitar, and he met a bunch of people before I even did, and he told some people that he played guitar and that his brother Dave played guitar, And all of a sudden, I started meeting these people that said, "Hey, we play guitar. We play guitar." And then Thomas comes up to me and goes, "Hey, I heard you play guitar." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I guess everybody's talking about that, but yeah, I play a little bit of guitar." And Tom says, "Well, so do I, man. Let's jam. Let's get together."
Well, what were you guys? What were you jamming to?
What kind of guitar do you have? And I was expecting, like, all the kids back in the '70s had a Les Paul and a Marshall, and he said, I have a '57 Strat and a Fender Bassman. I go, wow, that's the right stuff. I knew right then that was the right stuff.
I think because I couldn't afford a Les Paul. My brother had one, though.
From that moment, when Dave said, "Come on over to my house. I want to show you something that I saw." Hold on a second.
That was so great.
Awesome.
Thomas came over to my house with a guitar, an electric guitar that he built himself. A homemade electric guitar that was so killer. And I said, "Man, I love that thing." I played it, and it even played better than my '57 Strat. And so then I handed it back to him. Tom started playing it, and I had this little Gibson bass. So we're starting to play a little bit, a little more. I said, "Hey, let me play your guitar. I really like that. You play this bass." And I showed him a bass line, and that's how we did it. And we just started right from there.
But
Where'd you go, Tom?
This is the phonograph that was in Dave's bedroom at his mom's house when we met.
Wow.
Yeah, and we listened to all these records.
We both had, little reel-to-reel tape machines and a couple of microphones.
You see it?
Yeah.
Easy Rider.
Posters were on Dave's wall. See Hendrix here in the studio. It's a big poster.
Right.
And he had his walls. He's a rock and roll fan. He had his walls covered with these Hendrix posters. He was totally into Hendrix, and he could play it really good. And I couldn't touch that. So that's another reason I became a bass player, because he really had the Hendrix stuff down. And even at age 16, he was driving on a provisional license. He owned a car, but didn't even have a complete driver's license yet, and could play like him.
So besides Hendrix, what other records would you guys have been listening to on that record player?
Well, I had some B.B. King, so did Tom, and we quickly compared notes and started with Count Basie. We loved Count Basie.
I had the jazz record.
Yeah, Tom had a pretty big jazz record collection, and my grandmother had a great jazz collection, which I got a lot of my records from my grandma. And my first B.B. King record, Live at the Regal, came from my grandma Madeline.
And he liked Rory Gallagher.
Yeah.
Rory
I like the blues.
Gallagher.
I like the blues, kind of the blues rock guys, and Johnny Winter. Early on, I had some friends that. I had a friend, John Samuel, that lived in my neighborhood before I met Tom, and he was going on and on about Johnny Winter, and this record came out where Johnny Winter reintroduced Muddy Waters to the new kids like us, and that blew my mind. That changed everything when I heard Muddy Waters, and I went searching out all those chess records, and Thomas and I both, we just continued to look for rock and roll records. We loved Elvis. And right about that same time when we first met, I got a job working at a lumber yard. And this kid kept coming in the lumber yard to get his material for building houses. And he was a real cool looking cat. He had a white flat top. And every time he pulled up, he'd be playing some kind of like 50s rock and roll, cassette in his truck. And so I'd always look for that guy. He'd always look for me, and his name was Wick Broadley.
Oh.
And so right about the time me and Tom started playing together and jamming together, I met this guy Wick. Well, me and Wick started talking about things, and And he loved the blues and Muddy Water and Johnny Winter and all that. But one day he came in there and he was playing a Gene Vincent cassette in his truck. And I was knocked out. I was like, that sounds like Elvis. It's a little more rock, and I don't know who that is, but it's not Elvis, but it sounds like Elvis. And finally I said, who is that, man? That is knocking me out. That's Gene Vincent. That guy's the coolest. He was the other Elvis. And
that's where we worked, is Solana Lumber. And,
yeah, and they got Thomas Bob over there too.
It went about a half mile back from the original street, and you could go way back there. And Whit would take us way back, and we'd pretend to load lumber, and he'd play us rockabilly cassette tape.
That is cool.
Yeah. Eddie Cochran, he turned us on to Eddie Cochran, he turned us on to Gene Vincent. And I love George Jones, and I told him that. I love George Jones and Buck Owens, and that just like flipped him out. Because deep down, Whit, number one favorite music is hardcore honky tonk country, and me too. And we just connected. And then all of a sudden he says, "Hey man, can you teach me some guitar chords? Can I learn how to play guitar?" And so Whit started coming up to jam with me and Tom, and we taught him some guitar chords. And he got going pretty quick, and that's how when we first formed the Paladins. And Whit, that's how we got together. We got together with this guy's name was Whitney Broadley.
We didn't know what it meant when he named us
He
that.
named us the Paladins. Whitney did.
Well, where did he get the name from? The TV show, or where did he get the name?
Yeah, the TV show.
Wow.
Yeah, the TV show, and then believe it or not, and I still have it. He had a lunchbox. You know, when we were kids, everybody had a little lunchbox. And I just saw my wife run across the room. She's going to get it. But I have that old lunchbox. Whit used to carry this thing around full of cassettes that he made of all, I mean, like Billy Boy Arnold and Little Walter and George Jones. And there it is.
There it is.
That's the one. And so, man, he was the one that had the 59 Cadillac, you see. So we'd get on the road, and we'd always have a little boom box, and he'd have that box full of cassettes. So between Thomas, loving all the jazz and the swing, and then, you know, the rock and roll Elvis and all that, same with me, and then we hooked up with Whit, and he really turned us, we didn't know it was called rockabilly. We loved Carl Perkins and Elvis, and Jerry Lee Lewis, of course, because we all grew up, you know, KRLA, man. You heard this stuff on the radio every day.
Yeah.
And KHJ and all the great stations back then. But, you know, Whit just, you know, he just knew me and Tom were just hungry for those great records. And so he named us the Paladins, which many people ask what it means. And it means the protagonist of a cause.
All right.
And at our time when we started out, which was about 1980 when we met Whit, we officially became the Paladins in 1981. Our cause was raw rock and roll and you know, rockabilly music.
It's a Paladin. And she goes, well, maybe you should look it up in the dictionary. And that was...
You couldn't Google it back then. Yeah.
No, you couldn't.
Look it up. It's protagonist of the cause. Well, actually, it was the horse. It was the horse guys that protected the king. It's kind of a... Anyway, it has to do with... In Europe, it has to do with the game of chess.
Like on your shirt there, Paul.
Yeah, like that.
There you go.
Right there. That is, man. That's so cool.
Awesome. Hey,
It's so cool to bring back all these memories, you guys, because it was truly, you know, a long time ago. 1980, now it's 2020, so that's insane. You know, 40 years.
Well, you know, so
That's a lot of years.
So you guys, so you had a little background and strong roots in like blues and jazz related music, and then you got exposed to some of the rockabilly stuff, and that the sort of to me it seemed like you guys the way you guys played rockabilly was a little deeper. It was kind of informed maybe by some of those earlier sounds you had already been listening to. How long?
We love everything. We love Buck Owens, and we love B.B. King, and we love Gene Vincent, we love George Jones. And you know, right at that time when we were just starting to get together with Whit, and we weren't Paladins yet, but we were starting to kind of kick around. Sometimes he'd come up and sit in, and sometimes, we didn't really have Gus Griffin yet as our full-time drummer. We were trying to, like you did, Robert, you got to find the right guys that you click with. Tom and, Pope, it takes a while to find the right guys you can click with, but we ended up getting to know these cats that were living down by the beach. Thomas moved in with them, and they were kind of punk rockers, cool dudes. Well, the one guy, his name was Oliver Town, and Ollie and Darius, and they kind of hooked us up with this punk rock scene in San Diego County, and we got this backyard party. And we went over there to play it, and we were, just kind of jamming. But this guy came walking in that was about 6'5", and he just blew everybody away. And instantly, it was like the first guy I ever saw was like, who is that? That dude is a rock star. Who is this guy? And he comes up to me and Tom, and he goes, hey, I really like the guy's band. I want to know if maybe you guys want to come down and open up for my band in San Diego sometime. And we said, whoa, man, who are you? He says, my name's Dan McLean. I got a band called The Penetrators. And it was Country Dick.
Country Dick, yeah.
Before he was Country Dick.
Wow.
And he discovered us at that house party in Encinitas. And that changed our whole world. Next thing you know, a couple weeks later, we go down, we got Wet, we somehow got Gus, I don't know, probably I missed a week or two here or there, whatever. Tom, you might be able to fill in the blanks. But I just remember that changed a lot of stuff for us because the Penetrators were killer. They were a real killer band.
Spirit Club.
Yeah, no, that was at Fairmount Hall.
Oh, Fairmount Hall. Yeah, that was
Fairmount Hall, and Tim Mays was the promoter. And we opened up for Tim. We opened up for the Penetrators, and Tim met us and said, "You know what? I can help you guys out." And Tim became our manager at that point.
I was going to ask when you first started connected with Tim. Yeah, I saw that business card with Tim's. I saw that business card with Tim Mays' name on there.
He was our manager, and that's how we did it because Tom met these punk rockers that got us this backyard party, and then Country Dick showed up. That was before he ever Country Dick. Matter of fact, we knew him for many years before he came up with that. And then he actually had a band called Country Dick and the Snuggle Bunnies. And that was before the Beat Farmers. After the Penetrators, before the Beat Farmers. And then by then we were starting to get some, so Tim Mays got us going, after that got us going up to LA. And Thomas and I went up there and went, and Gus, we were blown away. We met James Infeld, we met Dave Alvin, we met, the Red Devils and John Jorgensen, Jeff Ross, all these people, man, that were hanging out at Club Lingerie every Wednesday night in the early 80s. And Art Fine put the whole thing together. He was the manager of the Blasters at that time. And we played a whole lot of shows opening up for the Blasters, which I would say for me personally, of all the bands I saw when I was growing up, coming up, the Blasters were number one. They still are number one because they mix rhythm and blues, rock and roll, New Orleans, LA blues, Sun Records. They mix it all together, and they have that great song, American Music, and that's what it's all about. It's a hybrid, and man, those songs Dave Alvin wrote in the early days and the way that band played. And Thomas and I just looked at each other and said, okay, we can do this. We can mix all these great American styles that we love and do our thing. Because those guys are doing it, and we want to be like them.
And did you feel welcome in that scene and all those bands that ended up being on that LA Rockabilly album? Were they very welcoming to you guys?
Very welcoming.
Yeah.
Like a big family, man. It was so great.
Because there's that iconic picture of you guys at Club Lingerie. I think maybe it was the party for that for the
LA
record release.
release.
And you just
Yeah.
look at the photo, it's like a who's who of what was going on in the scene at the time.
It was amazing, man. That was the greatest times, and we met all those cool bands and all those great musicians and promoters, and right after that, we started going down to the Palomino Club, which is, I believe, the first time I ever met you, Robert, is at the Palomino Club.
Yeah, I had seen you guys before, but we used to jump in our car. Like, one buddy of ours had a big old caddy. We would drive down to San Diego and see you guys down there. But I was just like a scared little kid in the corner. I would have never have had enough nerve to come up and talk to you guys. But I was taking it all in, though. And I remember the dynamic show. Like Tom, I remember, I don't know if it's just a false memory, but I remember, like, you playing, like, and like, running up the wall where you're playing bass and, like, doing a flip, like I think, like, did that really happen?
Oh yeah, we're tiny.
But
You
you're still
did
holding the
some
bass.
acrobatics.
Run up the wall and flip
Yeah,
over.
it's important to note about this time that we started to go to L.A. Dave's first girlfriend, his first wife, Julie, was in a video business. Now, video back then was this huge projector. It took two people to carry, and this silver screen that looked like a potato chip. But they would play stuff like "Girl Can't Help It" and on these tapes for parties. She had a business with a guy named Video Mike, who owned 8, and their business was going around to clubs and playing these early rock and roll movies like "Girl Can't Help It" and
Free MTV.
that way.
Yeah, free MTV. Mike was doing, his name was Video Mike. He lived right behind the Palomino Club. And he would go out with his cameras and he would make these videos on 3/4-inch videotape. He was way ahead of his time. That guy was so cool.
He was a consultant on Spinal Tap.
Okay.
And,
Awesome.
Did he ever film anything on you guys? Or?
Oh, I bet he did. Yeah, quite a few of our early concerts.
yes, we're going to get that going. He filmed Paladins opening for the Stray Cats in 1982 at the Adams Avenue Theater. And that's on 3/4 videotape, professional quality videotape. And I still have to transfer that. But that's going to be an amazing show.
Love to see that, man. Boy.
Yeah.
That was one of the great
Tom.
concert venues in San Diego at the time. That was Tim Mace's main venue at that time that he put bands in, was the Adams Avenue Theater, which now they have the Adams Avenue Street Fest, which the bands play. I'm sure you guys played it. We played it a number of times. But Tim Mace paved the way for San Diego. Back to Tim, who was the guy that opened up the Casbah. And there's 2 Casbahs. And the first Casbah was a little tiny shoebox hole in the wall, tiny little small place. And the only time we ever played there, we went there and we had this blues man with us named Smokey Wilson. Remember that, Tom?
Yeah, I know Smokey, man.
Oh, yeah.
We were getting ready to go to Australia for our very first time in 1989, and we got invited, and the promoter says, hey, is there anybody really cool we should know about that maybe you guys could bring along? And we go, yeah, we know this blues guy from Mississippi that's killer, the real deal, Smokey Wilson. And Smokey agreed to do it, but then when we tried to get our passports together and stuff, Smokey couldn't find. I don't know how he pulled it off because he was born in a barn in Mississippi and he didn't have a birth certificate. And we had to go through so much stuff, but we finally got the paperwork together and we said, we better get one show like really in with Smokey. So we went, Tim had us play the original Casbah, Smokey Wilson. And then like the day after that, we flew to Australia for our very first time.
That's killer. Hey, Dave, I have a question. I wanted to know, like, as a guitar player, and I love the Paladins, but at what point did you guys get really good and super tight and were able to manipulate your audiences? Because what I'm talking about is, like, when I would see you at the Palomino, I'd pay my $10 or whatever, and when you guys would come on, there was just, like, so much energy, and it was, I don't know, how did you guys capture that magic? Did you know that you had the magic? Or at what point did you say, man, our band is rocking, and you noticed the audience screaming at you? Like, at what point did you notice you had the audience in the palm of your hand?
There was something different going on, and it just happened, like, to us. It's like, oh my God, where did that come from?
First of all, I would say I was scared to death. When they told us we were going to go play the Palomino, I was like, man, I just looked in the paper last week, and Jerry Lee Lewis just played there. I'm scared to death. What are we going to do? And we went up there, and there was such a scene up there, and that was one of the places, I forget, I think you could be 18 or 19 to get in there.
Yeah, I was 18.
Well, we used to sneak in there before that, though. We used to climb over the fence in the back.
Yeah, and we let people in, too. If we saw people we knew, or, hey, we want to get in. Come on, let's go quick. Get in through the back. Thomas's little brother, we had this big case we could roll around with all our stuff. We take all this stuff out of the case and put his little brother in it and then roll it in. But, you get to the gig, there's such a vibe, man. There's so many people. And me and Tom would look at each other and we'd say, oh, boy, we better get it together, man. Let's tear it up. And we would just dig in, man, because I really think the energy of the whole scene is what made us say, we better get with it. And we would be that's an honor to play the Palomino. I grew up not too far from there, north of the valley, up in the Agora Hills, up by Thousand Oaks. And, we'd go down there and go shopping. That's where you went, because we lived kind of out in the hills. And we'd look in the paper. I'd see, Ray Price would be playing there, or Jerry Lee Lewis, or
Waylon Jennings was always there.
And then they started opening it up to younger bands like us. And then I even remember, I didn't get to see him, but I remember Curtis Mayfield played at Alligator. Yeah. Curtis Mayfield, because he played down in San Diego at the Belly Up, and he played at the Palomino, and that was so cool. That guy Billy Thomas, the man who owned the Palomino, he finally just started letting a lot of other, and I think that's great, because a good club should mix it up. You should have blues and country and rock and roll and soul, and at that time that was really cool. The Belly Up did that too down there. And incidentally, that lumberyard we worked at was on the same street as the Belly Up, and so these guys would always be coming in that lumberyard, and I got to meet a couple of them. One of them was Mac Falk, who was the original booking agent of the Belly Up. And you got to come down. He was a real mellow surfer guy. You got to come down and see the club sometime. I said, well, I wish I could. I'm only 17 years old. I can't get in yet. But come around the back, come check it out. And that's where we really started out, man. It was such a big deal to go down there to the Belly Up Tavern. And that was a really great club. It still is.
And something interesting about those times is we had a PA system. And there was a blues society in that area called the San Diego Blues Society, and they needed a PA system. And so they would hire Dave and Julie and me, come set it up and rent mics for it. And then they started to push us into play some blues. And we were like, I don't know, this is way out of my league, And finally, we were doing this gig at a Mexican restaurant, and a band comes in, Anson Thunderbird, and he's from Texas. And we said, we really want to play Texas. And he said, you should, they'd love you. So we arranged a tour to go out to Texas. Now, we're still playing California, West Coast, which at that time,
and a few times in Phoenix, Arizona, that was one of the greatest.
Minute set.
Yeah, Las Vegas.
You had to pack all that energy off and be off the stage in 40 minutes. When we started playing Texas and Louisiana and Mississippi, it was a whole night. It was 8 to midnight on Saturday night and 9 to 1 on Friday night.
And then a lot of times we get a gig after that, let's go out to the dock and play till the sun comes up.
But we still kept the same energy. By the time we got back to California, we were playing as hard, but with all this.
You were monsters when you came back. I think that speaks to what Tom was getting at. Because to me at least, it seemed like the only thing I can liken it to, maybe there's a little bit of hyperbole, but it's almost like, like people talk about when they first saw Robert Johnson play, on the street corners and stuff. Then he went away and then came back, and he was just like, oh, where did this come from? That's how the legend, the mythology was born. But to us, you guys, you were another great rockabilly band. We had a lot of them up here in Southern California. But then you guys, I didn't see you for a little bit. Then all of a sudden, you guys came back, and it was like, oh my Lord, this is something else happened. And you came, and I know, Dave, you said it was because you were inspired by the crowd. But I think, to me, it was more than that. You guys came back and you just killed it, and that's when it really started to snowball. That's all I have to say. Bye.
We're so lucky,
Robert, you know this too, because when you take something out of town and you put it on the road, you get to test it in front of a lot of audiences, and you come back a lot stronger player. Now the Reverend Horton Heat, he did the same thing, He was an in-town guy. He started to travel around the Midwest. I mean, just being on the road.
I think that's the answer, because none of the other bands we knew were traveling. You guys, you absorbed what you learned.
On the road. And actually, Thomas, you got to remember, though, you took off. After you worked at that lumberyard for a while, you said, I'm splitting. I got to go check it out. And you went to Europe for a while. And then you came back from that, and you said, we got to go play Texas. We got to go play Texas, man. That's where it's happening. And then you went down to Austin, Texas, and you met a bunch of people. Then you came back. This is like 80, 81. And that's when we met Anson Funderburg and did sound for his show at a Blues Society event. A bunch of other great people, Kevin Morrow, Tom Moore, and Jimmy Woodard. He was from Corpus Christi, Texas. And anyways, I'm going on and on, but I'll tell you what, those were the blues guys. And that's where we met Rod Piazza and Junior Watson and James Harmon and Hollywood Fast and Kid Ramos and Pee Wee Creighton. All these people, the Blues Society, Charlie Musselwhite, still my dear friend, the great Charlie Musselwhite, man. We did sound for him so early on and knew him. Then we ended up touring with him later on in Europe and backing him up. And but all that blues stuff was going on in Southern California at the same time the rockabilly scene was starting out. We got a gig one time, the Paladins, at this killer place called Madame Wong's.
Yeah.
And it was over there in Chinatown.
Yep.
And we walked in, and the Mighty Flyers were doing their sound check with Junior Watson.
Oh, man.
We saw him and Bill Stevie and Honey and Rod and Willie Schwartz on drums, and we said, oh my gosh, now we got to get it together, because these guys, they sounded like Chess Records and T-Bone Walker and all of that stuff. And I mean, I remember we were just looking at each other. We just ran up right in front of Junior Watson and just stood there staring at him, and he's looking at us, these little skinny, greasy kids looking up at him. But man, we loved him. He's one of the great. Him and Fats paved the way for so much of the blues. And then it was so funny, because right after that, we started playing these rockabilly shows. And we had a rockabilly show at this place called the Café de Grand in Hollywood, downstairs in this punk rock bar, just down the street from Capitol Records. And it was a funky punk rock bar that we played a few times. We had a killer gig, because we were going to go there and open up for Country Dick and the Snuggle Buddies. And we walked up, we drove up there, and we pulled up. Right when we pulled up in front of the Café de Grand, man, we heard this blues guitar. And we're like, whoa, what is this? And Whitney looked over at me and he goes, stay here, I'm going to go check it out. And he runs downstairs and he comes back and he goes, it's Jimmy Vaughn's brother. Oh. That dude's insane. Oh, man, this is unreal. And he's got Johnny Winter's bass player. And we're like, what? We go down there, and they ask, hey, you guys, this other guy wants to play on the show tonight. Can you guys go on a little early? And we're just sitting there going, holy cow. It was Stevie Ray Vaughan with Tommy Shannon on bass, Chris Layton on
drums. The way I remember it.
Yeah.
We go, you know who that bass player is? that's Tommy Shannon. He was Johnny Winter's bass player. And we went down there to talk to him. We went backstage to talk to Tommy Shannon because we were huge Johnny Winter fans. And then finally we came around to in a couple of minutes, this guy, Stevie Ray Vaughan, is really good.
I mean, it was unbelievable. And you know what? It was great. Just hearing some guys tearing it up. And, you know, when we talked to the drummer, Chris Layton, said hi to him. And, you know, and he said, yeah, I'm from Corpus Christi. I'm from Corpus. And I said, man, I know a really cool guy named Jimmy Woodard from Corpus. He goes, I went to high school with him. And Jimmy was like the swing blues guy in the blues society in San Diego that everybody was like, man, this guy's the best guitar player in San Diego by far, Jimmy Woodard. He was already playing a big Epiphone and just full on playing all the killer jazz stuff. It's just so cool how we ended up getting to meet all those guys early on. And right after that, man, Stevie Ray Vaughan hit it really big. And guess what? He never forgot about us. And he took us on tour with him many times, man. We went and played a bunch of gigs opening up for Stevie Ray. And he was always the nicest guy. I mean, he's like your big brother, man. And he would be out there at our sound check. He'd be there when we were loading our gear, come and check in on us, come backstage, come to our dressing room. I mean, just the greatest guy, man. We just were so lucky to be able to be there at that time.
His record was not out. Texas Flood was not out yet. They were mixing it across the street at the Sound Factory. Jackson Brown paid for that record to be mixed at the Sound Factory across the street from Kathy DeGrand. So they just wanted to pick up a little extra work on the side and go down to this punk rock club.
So it sounds like that was another pivotal point for you, Dave, because like at one point you started coming up with songs, you know, that had that kind of rhythm in it. Like, can you play a little bit of that again? Something with that kind of groove.
You know, it's that scratch rhythm, and I started seeing how he was walking the bass line, and that's what Stevie was doing, man. And it was really cool, a cool way to walk the scale. And when I came up with "Hold On," it was a lot like that. Let me see. There it is. When I came up with "Hold On," I was trying to get that scratch rhythm thing. When I first met you, baby, my heart was aflame. I had to have your love, I wanted to be your man. I told you everything that I could do for you. I promised you, baby, that I would love you true. So hold on, get ready. When my love goes down, it's gonna be heavy. Hold on. I was just hoping Stevie Ray would like it. Because you know, when me and Tom started out, we not only you know, were digging all these old records and all these different cats we met, you know, soaking it all in. But we were writing songs. We wrote all kinds of crazy, nutty songs, all kinds. We always were writing songs. And if we heard somebody like that, I'd go, man, I'm gonna write a song for him. And that's what I did with that song. I was like, yeah, maybe someday him, or you know, eventually I got to meet the guy who wrote a lot of Stevie's songs was a guy named Doyle Bramhall. And through being in Dallas a lot, meeting Ted Roddy, meeting Jim Heath, and I met Mark Pollock, went to Charlie's Guitar Shop. And that's where Stevie Ray and Jimmy and Anson and the Rev and everybody was hanging out there. We went in there one day and Charlie Pride was in that guitar shop. I remember that song. Oh my God, there's Charlie Pride. I'm like, holy cow. I heard those records as a kid. My dad loved Charlie Pride. I love him. He's one of the greatest country singers of all time. And excuse me, sir, are you Charlie Pride? Oh, yes, I am. Oh my gosh, sir. Oh my gosh. Can I get your autograph, please? And he autographed my guitar. And that was early on, man. That's when I was still playing Dixon.
I got a question, Dave. I wanted to know, like, when you guys played, you kind of, like, we were young kids. We didn't really know what was going on, but you were playing, like, Mercy and Slow Down and all these faster ones, but you also put in your blues stuff, too. So, like, as a young guitar player, like, we didn't even know what you were showing us. But it was cool. It was a good mix of, like, those fast rockabilly ones, the Joe Clay, but then you also threw in your own originals that had that Stevie Ray Vaughan, that Texas vibe that you came up with your own version of. So I just wanted to say, like, you actually manipulated a lot of us into, like, we didn't even know what we were listening to. But it was a good mix of music that you guys came up with.
You know, one of the greatest rockabilly of all time was the rock and roll trio, Johnny Burnett. And you know, Big Sandy, you know, the first time you ever heard that train kept rolling, you said, holy cow.
Yeah.
And that guy, Paul Burleson, played a lot of that guitar, man. He had such a bluesy, funky tone. And at a time when everybody else was playing real clean, you know, trying to play like Chet Atkins, which is awesome and very hard to do. But, you know, Paul Burleson was the guy, when they interviewed him, he says, well, I like Howlin' Wolf, and I wanted to play like those blues guys over there in West Memphis. And we were like, this is so cool. These are country boys, man, that love Elvis. They sound the rock and roll, but they're playing blues. Elvis loved the blues. Elvis had such a deep, full-on feeling of blues and gospel. And I mean, what can you say? Everybody, Elvis changed the world. And,
but guess what? You guys did too. You changed our world. No, but that's what happens, and that's what they were doing. They were absorbing what came before them, and they became the legends that they are. But you guys are legends of our lifetime. You really are.
We had so much fun. We
Paladin song, not Turner song.
Yeah.
What's that?
I'm sorry, Pope.
Yeah, what were you saying, Paul?
Hey, man. I said to me, Keep On Loving Me, Baby is a Paladin song. It's not an Ike Turner song.
Oh. So he said there was a lot of songs that you guys would do that a lot of people thought that were your songs, but you were teaching us, like Tom said, you were teaching us without us even knowing it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
hey, Thomas.
We would
I was wondering, man.
We would say we'd Paladinize stuff. We would take stuff that was, and just make it sound like us. So
yeah.
We got our first.
A lot of the blues maybe a lot of blues had electric bass in it at some point, and we would put acoustic bass into an electric guitar song.
Yeah.
And that became
Well, that brings up something Paul was wondering about with the electric bass, acoustic bass during that time. You want to bring that up there, Paul?
Yeah, Thomas. I was wondering, man, what was it like amplifying an upright bass in the early days?
It was all right. I mean, maybe the first couple of weeks I was trying to get a handle on it, and after a while I got a real loud sound. I was getting a louder sound on stage than I even dare to these days. But I had this K bass, and I put sparkles on it, and whatever.
I remember that.
Oh, sparkles.
It kind of kept it from feeding back. Feeding back was like one of the big problems. Would have been one of the big problems of that day, but
right.
It was so funny though. Go back to the early rockabilly days, and Thomas decides to put gold sparkle all over this bass, and it's going to be the new thing it's going to steal the show, and he's going to do a backflip off it and spin it around and all this stuff. But we get to the show, and there's John Jorgensen standing there with a silver one.
yeah, sparkle.
And they looked at each other. They said, "Hey, wait a second here. I wasn't gonna." He became one of our greatest friends, him and Jeff Ross, and they were so good. But Tom still could steal the show. A couple of backflips and.
When Nick and I were in college, we were taking like a film school in college, and for a project we were shooting in kind of the studio, and I took some glue and I put sparkles on the bass to make it stand out in the video. And it was so cool looking on video that I went ahead and shellacked the whole thing and put the sparkles in it.
I have
Nice.
some photographs that I took I think it was at Ricky Invelt's birthday party. I think you might have had that bass there. It was at the Invelt's at their family home there.
That same bass can be seen at the Belly Up Tavern on display.
Oh, cool.
I donated it. It has all these autographs. Dave and I were into collecting autographs. I have Willie Dixon and Hollywood Fats and Floyd Dixon.
Frank Fields.
Frank Fields, who was the original Texas Upsetters bass player. We tracked down people just to get all these great autographs.
Well, you went through a whole lot of bases back in those days, Tom. Tearing it up, man. I lost track.
Yeah, that one got. I got a better bass tonight, and then I started liking the better basses that didn't have a lot of sparkle. They had more tone, and I started to like that more.
I did want to say one thing about the energy of the Paladins. Now, I haven't seen you guys as much as I used to, but now I go on YouTube and I look for my favorite Paladins. And the thing I notice about any YouTube video with Paladins, they're live and the crowd behind you is going nuts. They're like Mercy or one of those rockin' songs. Like people just still go crazy over that whole thing. And how did you? I mean, does this surprise you that people still go nuts when you guys hit the stage?
It does, man. It surprises me, and I was very nervous about going out there, especially when we started playing those big festivals in Europe. But those fans over there, man, they just stick with you, and they don't forget, man. They saw you, in 1982, and they saw you in 1994, and they remember, and they turn more people onto it. We really got lucky at the time frame we got to do it. We put out records and cassettes, and I was very skeptical of CDs when they came out. I still am, but anyways, they're kind of handy to have. But we started playing those big festivals, and that's where things like "Keep Loving Me, Baby" would come up because we play these blues festivals. We got going and got signed to a great record label called Alligator Records.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And they were a real good record company. They still are, and they're great people. And there was a lot of, I felt myself, there was a lot of other really great real blues bands that would have loved to been on Alligator. But somehow we just got lucky. And what happened was we got up to Chicago and we opened up the show for Little Charlie and the Nightcats. And God rest his soul, Charlie Beatty just passed away a few weeks ago. He was the greatest. But we warmed him up and we tore it up. And we got down with it at a great place in Chicago called Fitzgerald's.
Yeah.
And I know Robert's played there a bunch of times. Bill Fitzgerald, one of the greatest guys, and we played there a lot of times. But we went there that night, and we did a damn good show, as we always try to. And we went backstage, and Bruce Aguilar was back there, and he says, "Okay, I had your guys' demo cassette tape on my desk, and I passed on you. I'm sorry I passed on you. If you can get out of your other record deal, I will sign you." And I said, "Okay, let's start talking." And we did. He bought us out from that first one the Pope was holding up there, the Wrestler record, and it had only been out for not even a year yet. And Bruce Aguilar bought out the contract and brought us to Alligator. At that point, everybody said, "What the hell is this? They're not blues band. What are they doing on Alligator?" But we said, "Hey, we don't know either." But next thing you know, we're opening up for Coco Taylor. There we go. We better, We better get some blues, you know, and we better slide in a couple of blues numbers, but then we'd also go.
Yeah.
And we'd rock it up, and the blues people would be going, see Tom up there?
I loved it. I love Tom on bass. It's great.
It was a new thing to see a blues band playing with an upright bass. It was fun.
It would be fair to mention that we had good people. Kevin Morrow was our manager at the time, and he worked really hard to get us on the road, to get us out there, and to do these deals. Steve Dean is another guy, a guy from Texas that put a lot of faith in us early on. You know, when we were just driving around in a van with hardly any place to go at all, this guy that used to be the road manager for the Thunderbirds said, "You guys got it. You guys go out there and entertain, and you do a good job." So there began to be a wider pool of promoters,
Right.
like from Chicago and Roger Neighbor in Kansas.
Yeah, man.
Grand Emporium.
Yeah, these guys were in the blues scene, and they saw that.
Yeah, Larry Beamer at the Zoo Bar, man.
Absolutely.
Zoo Bar, yeah. Lincoln, Nebraska, and just about anywhere you go, there was somebody that was a blues lover that loved what we did with the blues.
Yeah.
Just cranked up the heat.
And we had to follow in your wake. I mean, thank you for that. But also, we had to, like, there was always when the Paladins are here, it was always like a comparison. It's like, thanks, guys, you set the bar so high.
I did want to say, I remember that, Robert. You told me back in those days, you're all, how's Big Sandy doing? And you're all, well, we're kind of like the B team. The Paladins are A team. We're kind of like the B team.
Oh, that's crazy because we see you guys playing, man, and you guys were absolutely killer. And I want to even tell you, and this is transposing a couple of years, but let's give a shout out to Phil Duran.
Oh, man.
In Green Bay. And coming up with that Green Bay Rockabilly Rumble, whatever he called it, but he brought everybody up there. And we went up there one year. It was so cool. And we were so honored. We went up there to back up Barbara Lynn and play a Paladins show. And Big Sandy, you were there backing up, Janice Martin.
Janice, yeah.
And I went backstage, and you guys were warming up, and she was back there smoking a cigarette backstage, getting ready to go on. And I think I said hi to you or Ashley, and I was like, this is unbelievable. There's Janice Martin, right? You guys backed her up so good, and she nailed it.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. And then same thing, Barbara Lynn. We're up there playing, backing up Barbara Lynn. If you should lose me. And, oh, man. And
Actually, in the hotel room, that was an amazing experience. Also, You know who was there? Ike Turner.
Ike, yeah, man.
Turner was there. Who else was there? The Comets. The original Comets were at that
The
green.
original Comets. Oh my gosh! And you know, I told Robert a little bit of our story about when we first started out in San Diego. They had a TV guide, and we got on the cover somehow. The Paladins, this and that. And we're going to play at the Spirit Club. We went down to the Spirit Club, and we're just starting our sound check. Remember that, Thomas? And Marshall Lytle comes walking in.
The original bass player.
Yeah, man.
And we went to his house, and we visited him. And then we had another meeting where they got
Billy Gusak, the original drummer. He kept telling us, man, I want to get Billy over here. We're going to have a jam session.
Billy,
the original drummer.
Marshall, me and Dave.
Had a little jam? Or?
Oh, yeah, we had a jam in this club, man, down in San Diego. And Billy Gusak played the original. He's the one playing that Crazy Man Crazy, that drum intro.
Oh.
And he played it. We were standing
It's like
right
a marching
next
drill,
to
kind of like a cadence sort of thing. Yeah.
And we watched him do it, man. One-handed snare roll, and man, oh man, it was a thrill. But you know, Tom, you're bypassing the part, because we saw this man come walking in, and he's kind of walking in, looking at the band, and he looked right at Tom, at the big upright bass, walked right up to Thomas, you know, and put his hand out and says, "Hi, I'm Billy. I'm Marshall Lytle from Bill Haley's Comets." And Thomas, you remember? And you went down, shook his hand, handed him your bass, and he just started slapping.
Yeah.
And man, the sound was in his hands.
And yes, that's the man. He sat in with us too, and it, suddenly in his hands it sounded like a different instrument.
Just exactly
Yeah.
like the record. Yeah. I mean, it was unbelievable. We were so honored, and it was so cool that he read the TV guide and came down to see us. And then he invited us to his house. And remember that, Tommy? He had those gold records, the Saddlemen, and pictures.
It was the Saddlemen.
Yeah.
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 And he was telling
And
us
then
about.
later on, we got to play Green Bay with them when they made their comeback, and also we opened up at not Slim's. What's the other club, man?
Bimbo 365.
Bimbo.
And that was Wanda Jackson, Paladins. Paladins, Wanda Jackson, and the original Comets.
Holy cow!
I want to go.
The good old days.
Oh yeah.
Well, guys, you know what? We got about 5 minutes left on the West Coast Ramble here, but let's talk about what you guys have been. I know we got a lot going on. What have you guys been doing now? I know this whole thing has kind of put everyone kind of out of business for a minute, but what are you guys working on right now? I know, Thomas, you've got a studio. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about your studio.
Well, yeah. Been in the studio business since the 90s, and been in the record business since about 2003, when I signed the Paladins to do El Matador. And I've just been collecting all things Paladins and procuring the rights for it as much as I can, and keeping the band as recorded as I can. So all these great products I keep in print as much as I can, and that's it's a really a beautiful place, right on the beach in Oceanside, California, and I'm got distribution on all four corners of the planet, and new things are coming out all the time.
And where do people? I know there's a website for the studio and your ventures. In general, what is that?
LuxRecordsUSA.com.
All right.
Yeah, and there's lots of great pictures up there, and songs. You can download one song or the whole album. You can make a special rare request, and I'll try to find it. I try to get rare videos up on a YouTube channel every once in a while.
Yeah.
And you were mixing a project that when I talked to you earlier this week, I think you were doing some mixing and stuff. What's that project?
Me and my gal Laura James, my partner here, just released our album yesterday. The album is called Thunderlux. And when we were first falling in love around 2013, we started writing a lot of songs. And we had a little band, and we recorded enough songs to get an album out of. And we never did anything with it until there's nothing to do. Look back at what you got in the bag, and it was really interesting. As of yesterday, our initial release is smoking hot. We've got a write-up in the reader, and we're getting orders for it. It's online only. It's Thunderlux.
Okay.
At Lux Records USA, and it's me and Laura Jane doing kind of a rock thing. I don't know if Paladins fans would recognize it,
Well,
but it's really good.
well, we'll make sure Paul puts links to that information up on the West Coast Ramble site. Well, and Dave, I guess we'll put the same question to you, my friend.
Well, that sounds great. I wish I could also just say thank you very much to Thomas for keeping the ball rolling. And he's been in the music business. He got his own studio. You know, when we were first hanging out together, the very first time we ever started hanging out, you know, he had a reel-to-reel and a microphone, and so did I. We just kept collecting gear. And he always, wherever he lived or moved to, built a little studio and was always recording stuff, or, you know, kicking my butt into writing songs. And I love writing songs with Thomas. And we wrote a lot of songs together, and he would always be instigating that. And he's you know, deeply impassioned for music and you know, turning people on to cool stuff and helping people. And over there at his studio, Thunderbird, which is his best studio yet, is an unbelievable place. And he was really rocking along good till this COVID thing hit. But, you know, hopefully things are going to break loose and I guess, you know, get better. But he's recorded so many people over there and gave a lot of people chances to get in front of the microphone and sing their song. And, you know, he does that for me. And a couple of years ago, he was really, you know, him and Brian Fahey too, I must say, heads up to the great Brian Fahey.
Yeah, shout out.
They kept telling me, come on, Dave, let's make a record. Come on, let's write some songs. Let's get out there to Thomas's place. Come on. And, you know, I've been down here in Texas now on and off for about 10 years. I hadn't really moved here till just to end of last year. But, you know, I was hanging out doing some stuff over here, and I actually had a studio here too. But anyways, we did get back together and wrote a bunch of new songs. And
amen.
After all these years, we did come out with a new record a couple of years ago. And I think, did the Pope have it? It's the new one. It's called The New World. I got it right here if you want to see it. And and it was a challenge to get back in there and do it, but it was so fun. And creating.
This has been Susanna's record, Susanna Van Tassel.
Another fantastic record. Yeah.
It's a great record. And Dave recorded that over in Texas.
I had been hanging out with Susanna, and so when I was over here in between sessions and having different bands at my studio in Texas that I had for a while, Susanna would say, you know, next time you got those microphones fired up, maybe we should write a song. And it was cool because we were getting to know each other, you know, on and off for many years. And then finally we started writing songs together. And it was just wonderful. But it was the same way as when Tom and I write songs together.
The Susanna Van Tassel album is 100% analog. He never did take a step. I
even mastered it analog. I did everything. I don't have any computers at my place.
It's a beautiful sounding record.
Hey, Dave, I know people will yell at us if once they're watching, they see that instrument in your hand, and we don't let you do a song to kind of take this whole thing out here. So can we hear a little something there?
I have to tell you, this is a baritone guitar.
Yeah.
On to this because when we first went to Phoenix, Arizona, and I love Dwayne Eddy. I was always figuring out, how does Dwayne Eddy get that really low sound and that twangy sound? And when you hear the races on, you know. I was always trying to figure out how to do that, tune my guitar down or whatever. Well, we went out to Phoenix, Arizona, and we opened up for a band called Paladins. And it was Brian Fahey, Mario Morena, and this great bass player, Bruce Hamblin. And they were killer. And And me and Tom looked at each other. We looked at Brian. We looked at each other. We go, "That's the guy. We need that guy." We knew Brian the first time we ever saw him play. We knew he was the guy. And
you know what? I remember.
We hung out with them so much, and Bruce Hamblin was such a cool bass player, and he was like a Sons of the Pioneers full-on Western guy. And he had a homemade baritone that he made out of an old little Fender short scale bass, and he re-drilled the headstock. And he was trying to make an electric Bajo, a Bajo Sexto, but he handed it to me, and I was like, this is what I need right there. And I was on a lifelong pursuit of figuring out the baritone. And then we went to record with Mark Neal, and he had one, of course. And I think that's the one that Tim Mag ended up getting. But I was just on, I had to figure out this baritone thing. And I really love this instrument. I think it's, you can play a lot of melody on it. It's great for soul music. You know, you can go.
Oh, that's sweet.
Okay, so we came up with this one called The New World, title track, and it's one that I came up with on this baritone, just trying to come up with something weird, but there was just so many things going on, there still is. You can't believe this is still going on. It's 2020 now. Are you guys really still going to fight about all this stuff? But people are, you know, really going through a lot of hard times right now. And came up with this one, the title track.
That's magic, man.
Thank you, brother.
And it's in your hands too. You talk about, man, you get sounds out of the instruments you play. That's for sure. You both do. And you always gather the best.
That bass. Excuse me. I wish Tom would pick that bass up and show us a couple of bass lines. Huh? Thomas, you got your bass over there?
I have a bass.
I just miss it, and I want to hear you and feel you, man.
The last time I was on stage with the Paladins was in Finland, and
Grandiose.
I left my bass parts there. So this is what I do: fly into these gigs, and I pick up basses there, and I leave the parts for my basses. So next time when I go back, I can keep the parts on those basses. So there's basses around the world that have my parts on them. I just leave them where I can.
On a global basis.
I could just figure out.
On the global basis.
It's so intense. It's so intense. That I picked something simple like that. There's not a lot of fancy things going on there. It has to be pretty anchored, and there's so much exertion going into it and coming out of it. I can't let it wear me out. So it's just a simple little.
I didn't know there was so much science that went into it, man. That's a big turn. That's a big turn on.
The bass is set up to cross over, and not to just a slapping sound, but also a plucking sound and a pizzicato sound. So I'm covering a lot of different areas of percussion when I do this.
And you know the right places to do that. When to lay back and when to.
Yeah, I get right in between Dave and Brian, and that's kind of the sweet spot to be, because you just know where to put the edge on it.
I just want to say it speaks for both of you guys. It speaks to both your character and talent that you've attracted over the years. So many amazing players, but also really all of them to a T. Each one, just really nice guys, as you both are. Thank you for being on the show, you guys. Tom?
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Hey, thank
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
See you again, man.
Well, thanks a lot.
Thank you guys.
Yeah,
so
thanks for
much.
being with us. And hey, when you guys get back into town, when this whole thing is over, how much would it cost me to get the Paladins to come into my studio and just play 3 songs?
Where is your studio?
It's in North Orange County.
North Orange County. Well, how about let's get everybody here and we'll record it on.
He's talking about video.
Thomas, that's a deal. We'll bring the whole gear down there in your studio when you're ready. Man, I will bring out the cameras, everything. We'll do it.
Bring out the cameras, and we'll do the audio segment high end, and we can do it with a live audience. The last concert that we had here was March 3rd. We had 200 people right here in this place.
Yeah.
And we burned through 2 kegs, and it was a huge party. And I'm looking forward to doing that kind of thing.
Thomas, you have my number. You just call me when you're ready. You just let me know.
Everybody's ready when we can.
I'm ready in several different ways. Yeah.
All right, guys, we got to say goodbye to the Paladins. Thank you so much, guys, for being on West Coast Ramble. That was great. We love you, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much, you guys. God bless. Adios.
And so I want to thank everyone for sticking around. We had, over an hour of full Paladins, sir. How did the show go to you, Mr. Big Sandy? What do you think?
It meant the world to me. My heart is filled with joy right now. I love those guys so much, and I know you feel the same way. So thanks to the Paladins, and thanks to all of you for joining in.
And Paul, man, what did you think about that? Even though you didn't get into the Palomino because you were like 3 years old at the time in 1989, but what's your impressions of the Paladins?
That was it was so cool to hear all those stories about them finding their sound and, just like their outlook on being a band. It was so cool. And thank you guys so much for, spending a 4th of July with us. And thank you for all the tips. Venmo at West Coast Ramble and PayPal.
It helps so much.
PayPal. We really appreciate that. Thank you guys.
Hey, yeah, if you can tip, that would be fantastic. What we're going to do now is we're going to go over to stageit.com and check out the Jimbos with Reverend Horton Heat and his faithful sidekick, Jimbo Wallace.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We love you.
We'll see you. See you next week.